Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Mist-Filled Path, Celtic Wisdom for Exiles, Wanderers, and Seekers, by Frank Maceowen. Foreword by Tom Cowan. Narrated by Roger Clark. Foreword by Tom Cowan. Druids, poets, and storytellers shared a major responsibility in traditional Celtic communities. They reminded the Celtic people who they were. In former ages, when wisdom stories and sacred histories were not written on the fragile page, where, it was feared, the tales would fade with the ink or be torn to pieces and lost forever, these keepers of memory orally passed on the wisdom of their people from generation to generation. Every people needs teachers who can tell them where they came from and what they are doing here, or what they should be doing here, if they hope to preserve the spiritual values and traditions of their culture and pass them on to their children. Without such teachers, a people dies. A Mist-Filled Path is a book by and about such a teacher, a modern Celt, the initiatory crises that led him to discover who he is, and his impassioned call to the rest of us to find the old paths once again, walk them, and discover the mystic beauties of the many worlds we live in. Frank Maceowen reminds us who we are, or who we could be. Frank really does love the mist. One summer he was a guest at my home in New York's Hudson River Valley, a damp, forested region, especially compared to the arid high plains of Colorado where he was living. One morning I found him sprawled on my porch at dawn, a walking stick across his lap, beads of perspiration running down his face, his boots and pant legs soaked in the morning dew and covered with burrs and stick-tights. I asked where he had been. "With the apples and the deer," he answered, and I knew he had risen early to watch the sunrise from the orchard on top of the hill behind my house. The burrs and stick-tights were a kind of red badge of courage, his wet boots and cuffs a fleeting keepsake from hill-walking in the morning mist. He looked weirdly contented. There are reasons to love the mist, as you will discover in the sections that follow. The mist is a threshold state in Celtic spirituality. It is sacred. We might even think of mist as a sacrament in the old Catholic sense of that term, an outward sign of an interior state of grace. As Frank explains it, mist consciousness is Druid consciousness, saint consciousness, shaman consciousness, and Christ consciousness. It is the awareness and perspective of a person standing at the threshold of sacred experience, even as you are now poised on that same threshold, with this beautifully written guide to accompany you in your wayfaring. My own travels with Frank have opened doors and gateways into those invisible realms of our longing, where we catch grail-like glimpses of the goodness for which we yearn. Longing, too, is a holy state for those not afraid, as Frank puts it, to surrender themselves to the great pull that lures us into life, to places we have not yet dreamed of, places where the great shaper of life longs to shape us. Frank Maceowen has felt this lure, and followed it, and now invites us to lean into that divine power, so that we might discover its presence, and then honor and celebrate it in the simple events of our day. Once hiking through the Catskill Mountains, we paused at an old stone well, an ancient spring lined with Catskill bluestone by settlers in the 19th century. It was the kind of thin place where the mysteries of the other world call out to be recognized and honored. So we made some prayers to whatever salmon, trout, or skull might dwell in the invisible depths of the waters. As we left, Frank reverently placed a reddish oak leaf on the blue stone at the head of the well, then a smaller yellow leaf on that. Last, and meticulously, he set a green gem-like pebble from the trail on top of the two leaves. a tender, heartfelt, and gentle offering to the Mother of the Waters, who is the lifeblood of these mountains. Frank does things like that. The Celtic spirit, like the Celtic mind, does not want to get locked into a rigid framework with no way of escape. Like the mist, the spirit wants to shift, rise, disappear, and return. Frank knows this. The rich treasure of Celtic mysticism presented in this book, pagan, Christian, and postmodern, is not a hoard for dragons to guard, but more like a sail to hoist into the wind to let the elements of God decide direction and destination. With an exciting boldness, Frank pulls the old ways out of our many pasts and into the present, but always with a sensitivity to what is authentic and appropriate for these new times and places. Nor is he blind to parallel teachings from other cultures and centuries that support, enhance, and make sense of the older Celtic ways. You will find in this book the indigenous wisdom of Africa, Asia, and Native America, Sufi and Buddhist teachings, some renegade Catholic ideas, and a touch of modern depth psychology, and ideas about social and environmental activism, all seen through a Celtic lens. You can trust this guide as his eye wanders over the vast mystic landscape, and he points out the next stop on our pilgrimage. We are, to use his phrase, people of the wandering fire, and we need to know the geography of the modern world we wander through if we hope to interact intelligently with others of different beliefs and values. If you take this book to heart, it will not make you look like a strange remnant of a lost civilization caught in a modern time warp, trying to find your way back into a mythic past. As presented here, Celtic spirituality is not a romanticized artifact, or an atavistic throwback to earlier times, but a modern ethos for dealing with environmental crises, the poor and homeless, the uncertainties of a hostile and dangerous world, and the mind-numbing, spirit-numbing boredom that our consumer culture generates in so many people. Confucius said, "The person who can reanimate the old and in so doing gain knowledge of the new is fit to be a teacher." Frank Maceowen is fit to be a teacher. The Mist-Filled Path is an engaging, lyrically written account of old Celtic ways and a challenging manifesto to live them in the 21st century. You may not be Celtic or even Western, but to study with such a teacher who can reanimate the wisdom of the past so that it sings in your modern heart is a wonderful experience. Late one night on the Scottish island of Iona, after one of many long and tangled discussions about the nature of the other world, Frank invited me to light a votive candle with him in the chapel of St. Oran, a member of Columcille settlers, who founded the first Christian hermitage on that island, which had once been a powerful Druid sanctuary. Legend has it that Oran is buried in a grave beneath this chapel, where he was placed alive by Columcille as a sacrificial offering for their new spiritual venture. After 3 days they dug up the grave to see how he was doing. He was still alive and kicking, and announced, "The other world is nothing like you imagine," whereupon he was reburied, and, by all accounts, still lives there. Beneath our candle flames, beneath our prayers and vigils, beneath our own imaginings of what those other worlds are like. This book helps us imagine and see those worlds. It helps us prepare for whatever surprises we might eventually discover. In it, you will tromp through burrs and stick-tights, make offerings by sacred springs, light candles late in the night. You will realize, I hope, as I did in reading these pages, the great joy that comes from mist-walking. Tom Cohen, Highland, New York, author of Fire in the Head, Shamanism, and The Way of the Saints. Introduction. Waking Up in the Land of Sleepwalkers. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the doorsill where two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Jalal-ud-Din Rumi. Our world invites us to become what I call sleepwalkers. Many people, some without even knowing it, have accepted the invitation. When we're not truly alive within our senses, days bleed into days, night after night passes. Too many of us squander our lives, spending them in front of televisions, filling our minds with a crazed habitual raciness that is hard to throw off. I use the word spend on purpose, because the numbered days of our lives are a precious commodity. Where and how we choose to invest our energy and time is of great importance to the soul. Where we choose to place our awareness matters. So many of us have unquestioningly bought the unspoken story that if we plop ourselves down in front of the blinking strobe box, we will be magically transformed by its quicksilver images. Allow me to state the obvious. The good life portrayed there is not good, nor is it truly life. It is not the kind of living that deepens our relationship to authenticity. It is not the kind of life that brings us into contact with wakeful purpose or wonderment, which are our divine birthright. The rumbling of this subliminal world of 30-second soundbite commercials, fueled by the promise of instant gratification, sends millions of us on unconscious, often unscrupulous journeys to the store to obtain more and more things that eventually serve no greater purpose than to clutter our living spaces. This gesture and ritual of accumulation is anchored in an illness within the modern zeitgeist. This illness is one of illusion, thinking that material objects will provide us with the inner satisfaction that ultimately can only be gained from valuable, wakeful life experiences. I am not talking about objects that truly help our lives or provide for a deepening and richer experience of our earth walk. Put the right book in the hands of a person at the right time in his or her life, for example, and a transformation occurs. A candle, a framed photograph, a beautiful plant, a rustic desk, a journal. Things like these can often provide for an aesthetic and spiritual doorway to an experience of our lives as a thing of beauty. In effect, they can support us in waking up and staying awake. Nonetheless, even these items are not the same as the actual experience of a deepened and awakened life. Owning a meditation cushion, a yoga mat, or a Scottish walking stick does not automatically grant the achievement of wakefulness. They are only tools. Our homes, packed with all the latest gadgetry and accumulations from our travels, combined with the developed landscapes in which we live, begin to mirror quite succinctly the cluttered quality of the interior life of the modern person. As within, so without. Our living spaces, our city spaces, reflect our minds and souls. Eventually we get claustrophobic with all the clutter, all the prized possessions crammed into closets. Suddenly we cannot wait to travel as quickly as possible away from our homes, away from our cities and towns, to some other region. We grow tired of our possessions because they do not fill the void. They do not make us happy. They did not provide us with the sustained and sustainable experience of the inspirited life we were longing for in our bones. We see these objects differently from how we saw them when they were bought. We realize they do not, in the end, soothe the deep ache. In time, our possessions will go the way of the dinosaur, end up in landfills or yard sales, or get passed on to those less fortunate, granting us the brief feeling that we have been charitable. We then start the cycle again. We go for more objects. But a home filled with clutter is no home at all. In the words of Anthony Lawler, author of A Home for the Soul, we want our houses and apartments to be warm, nurturing, and beautiful, but they are sometimes areas of chaos and territories of conflict, isolation, and confusion. The very places that hold the promise of harmony and revitalization can, instead, be abodes of disorder, friction, and loneliness. We are not at home in our homes because we are not at home in ourselves. We are not at home among the living things of the earth. We are not satisfied or content. We are not at home in our minds. We are not at peace. If we look at our habits in the land of the sleepwalkers, we see that, for some, the substance of true intimacy in relationships has been stripped from our vocabulary. The experience of personal human contact has been replaced by the less tangible, less complicated, less challenging, and therefore less honest world of virtual chat rooms. We come and go from our homes and apartments, often with no real sense of who our neighbors are. Slowly but surely, this reality begins to set itself up within our families and marriages, and our relatives and spouses become strangers to us, emotionally and spiritually. A true association or fluency with the inner face of the soul is missing. Intimacy can be read as into me see. It must start with our being willing to look deeply within, into the realm of both our untapped creativity and our shadows that hide in the corners. Intimacy is the human heart, opened up to the world, declaring fearlessly, I invite you to see into me. In the world of the sleepwalkers, intimacy is all too often replaced by anonymity. Many people let years pass without letting others know them deeply. They are just as homeless in their inner lives as people living in cardboard boxes on the street. We have become exiles from one another, exiles from the lives we yearn to live. We have become disenfranchised from our dreams, strangers to our own inner faces, wandering like hungry ghosts for some sense of belonging. Ultimately, this is an exile that we all share. It is a common wound, for it is a collective exile from an enlightened society that we all know is possible. We all share the hope of this potential, this endowment of peace and ease. But for now we simply keep going, some of us half asleep. The seeds of a society rooted in illumination and wakefulness rest deep inside us. These seeds sleep beneath our own sleeping. They are the seeds of longing, shared by all our ancestors. Like the quickening seeds that tremble at the time of Emolc, the tremor of spring in Celtic tradition we ourselves stir. These seeds twitch just beneath a frosty layer of earth, and slowly move in their casings. In time they set their root, and begin an upward pilgrimage to the gleaming sun. It is our time to set our root and wake up. Return. My wish for you is a homecoming in this life, a coming in out of the cold, a drying off the icy rain's touch. In the holy reliquary of childhood memory, may you find there the unshakable truth of your preciousness. May you remember the cool and padded graces of your wet feet against stone. In the middle of a long night, a single burning light serving as your peace, may you fold back the pocket holding your slights, your jilted times, your feelings of betrayal, and discover small diamonds there, created from the crushed coal of your hates and rage. May you taste resurrection without the need of dying for it. From Building Fences in High Wind, Poems of Longing, Frank Maceowen. Setting our root. Something begins to happen to us when we accept an invitation other than that offered in the land of sleepwalking described earlier. We take a deep and life-affirming breath. We slowly move from a life of exile and wandering to the life of seeking. In this holy seeking, the ordinary becomes holy again, magical. Sleepwalkers begin to wake up. People in pain begin to find solutions. People racked with stress find ways to return to solace. People who feel outside life suddenly experience the blessing of homecoming, punctuated by the realization that there is no such thing as loneliness when one has the powers of the universe flowing through him or her. Equally as powerful is when people who have set their root and have begun to wake up begin to extend their energy and presence into the world as a means of fostering wakefulness in others. Suddenly, a person who felt cut off from others and from the beauty of life becomes an ambassador of this beauty, a shaper of it. Within this beauty lies a deep peace that is, we might say, a central hearthstone of the Celtic tradition. The Celtic spiritual traditions are rooted in peace. Prayers, rituals, daily acts, and orientations focus on fostering peace. In essence, the Celtic spiritual path aims to facilitate three conditions: an opening within the human heart, a sheltering sense of solace in the world for those who struggle, and an ongoing sensual celebration of the beauty of life. These guideposts lie at the heart of the many soul maintenance practices that are performed in these very old traditions. Living a life that fosters these conditions of soul maintenance is what I mean here by setting our root. It is about changing our reality from one of discord to one of harmony. As trembling seeds of a hopeful future, we choose to set our root in what some Celtic theologians call goodness, love, and yearning. This process becomes the path. It becomes a way of changing self and the world. This kind of waking up is noticeable, visceral. People begin dedicating their lives to transforming themselves and the world. People living in city apartments suddenly start saying hello, extending themselves and the range of possibilities for human connection and the human condition. They join one another in instant communities on front porches, and suddenly the air becomes pierced with astonishing questions, such as, "How is it with your soul?" Individuals step out onto the streets and reach out to those living a life of struggle, the hungry, the displaced, the grieving, and ask, "What can I do to help?" People who have felt displaced from the holy landscape of the natural world enter back into the green world and find themselves embraced. People in relationships who have fallen asleep, who have forgotten each other, suddenly remember with immense clarity the preciousness of the person with whom they share a home. They embrace and ask, "Where have you been? Where have I been?" Being willing to entertain such questions as, "How is it with my soul?" requires us to slow down a bit. The willingness to orient our lives to such questions demands that we slow down a lot. If we are to truly set our roots in such soil, we must aspire to create sanctuaries of the stillness in our lives. We must find our places of resurrection, as it is spoken of in the Celtic Christian tradition. We must rediscover our ancient house of memory. Imagine giving yourself a potent gift. I will describe it to you as a practice. Practice. Setting your root. Clear out a room in your home. Put some things in storage. Better yet, sell or donate them. Set aside a space specifically for consecrating a brief retreat that will focus on setting your root. Make this space a place to honor the ancient rhythms. Make it a place where you can be without distraction. Now choose a day over the course of a weekend. In our busy lives, finding such time has become difficult, yet it is possible and merely requires a commitment. Plan in advance. Set aside a Saturday, perhaps, with the full knowledge that this day is your day. Ask friends or family to support you in this endeavor. Upon entering the room for what will be an entire day, dawn to dusk, watch what happens to your mind. There will be no email, no World Wide Web, no television, no telephone, no dinner dates, no ritualized habits. There will be no movies, no coffee, no cigarettes, no alcohol, just the quiet edges of your soul being still. The tremor of your mind engaged in reclaiming your place in a more ancient rhythm. When we remove ourselves from the unnatural rhythms of the world, the more ancient rhythm of our earth selves returns. This is nature's healing power on us and within us, for we are part of nature. Once you've made room, the questions come. For some people, so do the fears, doubts, and worries. Stay with the questions that arise. Stay with the fears. Stay with the boredom. For undoubtedly your mind will continue to spin. Your mind will say, "But I could have taken a trip this weekend. I should have done some yard work. I should really do my taxes." Think of these things as a cold wind and turn yourself instead toward the warm, sweet, sheltering spirit of silence. Stay with your questions, and think of this act as warming your earth. It is like the sun thawing the frosty ground. Chew on the questions, the doubts, and the fears. Feel them to be what they really are, the necessary magnetism of moistness and warmth to activate the seeds of wakefulness within you. Where a moist chill meets warmth, the luminescence of mist is born. The mist is the threshold, the guardian of the in-between where vision is received. Within the mist of liminal time and space, we are able to plant the seeds of a new life. Remember that the seed is you and me, and the soulful life we long for. Use this time for setting your root. Think about what soil you want your soul to take root in now. Open yourself to vision. Open your heart to feeling. Face the fear of not knowing. Welcome all your doubts, and know that they too are companions and guides in this process. When you are ready to set your root, stand and face the 4 directions, starting with the east, the direction of the new rising sun. Move in a clockwise fashion, what is called Díseal, or sunwise, in the old Gaelic tradition. Announce out loud what you are setting your root in. Perhaps you are setting your root in waking up, in remembering sacred world, in coming back to your senses. Perhaps you're setting it in healing, in cultivating gentleness with yourself, in fostering a sense of true self-respect. Perhaps you are throwing off the shackles of a self-absorbed, materialistic life, and are now setting your root in a life of kindness and service to others. In any case, speak this commitment, the new root of your life. Speak it out loud. Speak it to everything, to your ancestors, to the earth and sky, to the unseen world. When you have set your root, know this. Everything in your life, from the time of your stated commitment forward, becomes like the seed sending its shoot toward the sun. Your root is set. The seed that is your heart is now committed to being open. It is time to begin. Having set your root, you are now looking for the sun, which is the same as a wakeful life. Feel the sun on your brow. Let the solar power, the great wheel of light, pull you. When you are ready, slowly enter back into connection with others dear to you. like the young sapling that emerges from the ground into the light of day.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?